Welcome to the Legends of Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The Legends of Boxing Show was brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation. Make sure you go to Facebook, check them out, Jackie Richardson and Alex Ramos. I'm your host for the Legend of Boxing Show, Mike Goodpaster, and my guest tonight was a man probably best known for an 11th round knockout over Johnny Bump City Bumpus, which made him the WBA Junior Welterweight Champion of the world. Help me welcome to the show, Gene Mad Dog Hatcher. How you doing, Gene?
All right, Mike.
Oh,
Thanks for having me on tonight.
We got to start off from the start. How'd you get the nickname Mad Dog?
Well, that come from earlier in my career when I first started training down at the Gorman Super Pros. I used to take my pit bulldog down to the gym, and I would tie him up in the corner over there with his chain. And when I would spar, my pit bulldog would kind of go nuts over there in the corner. He didn't like me sparring, so he would be barking and just going out of his wits because I was in the ring, you know, getting hit on and hitting somebody. And so somebody called me Mad Dog one day, or called him a Mad Dog or something, and it just stuck. So that's where it come from.
Yeah, they don't like to see their owners get hit.
Yeah, his name was Popeye. So after that, we called him Mad Dog Jr.
Yeah. All right. So from what I read, you started boxing at the age of 10. You want to tell everybody how that came about?
Yeah, Mike. My father had taken me to the Golden Gloves, and I wasn't just hardly waist high, and as big as he was, I was 10 years old, and I got to see a couple people get knocked out in the ring, and I seen Nick Wells knock out a gentleman that night. He knocked him completely out of the ring, and I told my dad after the fight, I think I want to try that.
Nick Wells, he was the Army champion, or?
Yeah, he was the Army champion. He was the one that beat Larry. He beat Larry Holmes, I think, as an amateur.
He beat Larry Holmes twice. He knocked him out twice. I interviewed Larry Holmes, and I specifically asked him about Nick Wells. And the reason I did was this. The thing that got me into boxing was what me and my dad used to like to watch together on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. And my dad was in the military. He was stationed in Germany in like the mid-late 60s. And he used to tell me about an amateur heavyweight by the name of Nick Wells, who he thought was the baddest dude he'd ever saw. And Nick Wells turned pro and never really had much success. I've been looking for him forever because I'd love to have him on a show to talk to him. But it's just weird.
Would you?
Yeah, it was awesome because you just brought that up. And the only person that had ever brought Nick Wells up to me before was my dad when we'd sit there and talk boxing.
Yeah, well, I just got through having a meeting with Nick Wells not a couple of weeks ago. We had a Fort Worth get-together of the old-time fighters, and Nick Wells was one of them. So maybe after we get off there, I can hook you up with him.
That would be great because, like I said, the story just stuck with me because, I mean, everything that me and my dad did together when I was little sticks with me, and that would be great. And also, with the boxing, was your dad one of your trainers or your original trainer?
Yes, my dad was in every time that the bell went off in all of my fights. My dad was there. He was not what you called the trainer. He was more the just behind me, my moral support. And Papa Joe Betty Inches was my trainer, the one that would push me to the limits of, getting in the best shape that I could.
Now,
I think with a father and son relationship, it's hard to make it work. Being the top trainer, so you have to have somebody else.
Yeah, there's very few cases where that works, but I guess your relationship with your dad was not hurt by the boxing?
Oh, no. Me and my father stayed close all the way up to the year that he died. He passed in 1994. And, we was close all the way up.
All right, so you started an amateur career. I'm guessing you probably had a couple hundred fights since you had such a long amateur career. You won a U.S. Amateur Championship. What were some of the highlights of your amateur career?
Well, my first fight as an amateur was in Burleson, Texas, which is a little bitty suburb of Fort Worth. And my second fight was my first knockout. And after the second fight, when I got that knockout, I was hooked by the boxing ring. And I had decided then that I was going to further pursue it. And I grew up fighting in Fort Worth. And we fought in the Junior Olympics, and we went to, I think, South Dakota the first year or second year. And the Golden Gloves started it, and then I won the Golden Gloves and went on to the Nationals in the Golden Gloves in Honolulu, Hawaii. And I think by 1979 or 80, I had won the AAU Nationals in Las Vegas, Nevada, which was right at the time that I was getting ready to fight for the Olympic trials, which is where I started talking to people about turning professional. And David Gorman come up with an idea and a plan of getting a bunch of the Fort Worth people and turning them pro. So we all hooked together with Don Curry and myself, and there's Stevie Cruz, Troy Dorsey, there's Robin Blake. There was a lot of good fighters out of Texas that went on into the professional ranks that made it all the way to the top, or close to it anyway.
Yeah, and I think that is why you had a boom in boxing from the 70s through the 90s, was how big. I don't think people realize today, if they're younger, how big the Golden Gloves was back then. You had amateur boxing shows on Wide World of Sports, and the Golden Gloves in New York would be in front of a packed house. And the competition then was unreal that you had to go through and fight. And in 1981, you fought at the Will Rogers Coliseum in Fort Worth, Texas, against Ken Shepard in your pro debut.
Yeah.
Number one, what do you remember that night? And number two, what was it like fighting in your hometown?
What I remember mostly about Ken Shepard is it was my first professional fight, which in turn it made me real nervous because it was my first one, and I always couldn't envision myself never being a professional fighter, so it did make me very nervous. But I do remember in the fight, because I've got tapes and videos of all my fights, that Ken Shepard was a pretty good boxer, but the Mad Dog come through in that fight and tore him up pretty good in the second or third round and won that fight. So it was exciting. I remember being my first fight in Fort Worth.
Yeah, and you win 11 fights in a row or so, and then you fight in Fort Worth again, but this time against Alfredo Escalera, who was a former world champion, was a tough guy. What was that like for you, only your 12th fight, to fight somebody that was that seasoned and that good of a pro?
Well, I think now that I can look backwards at it, I really believe that I was matched a little too soon for myself if I was doing the matching. But David Gorman, along with my dad and Papa Joe, they all agreed. See, I was supposed to fight Bruce Curry that night.
Okay.
And like three or 4 days before that fight, Bruce Curry had to fall out of the fight because of some kind of injury in the gym. So they pulled out of the fight, and then they filled Bruce Curry's position with Alfredo Escalera. And I didn't have no earthly idea who Alfredo Escalera was until after the fight, and I never did really pay attention too much to other fighters anyway. But after I found out that he was a former world champ, boy, my head started to swell after that, because I had won that fight pretty decisively in Fort Worth. So it gave me a boost of confidence that I'd beat a former world champ anyway.
All right.
That's for sure.
6 months later, you took your first loss to Tyrone Butterfly Crawley, who would end up fighting for the world title a few years later. He was a slick boxer. You lost a majority decision in Atlantic City. What do you remember of that fight, and what did that fight do to your psyche? Did that fight make you better from the loss?
Yes, I believe that anytime that you take a loss like that, especially if you've got your goals set. I already had my goal set that I wanted to become a champion. And Butterfly was an excellent boxer. He was so fast and moved good on his feet, and it was very difficult to get him cornered in the corners to do any kind of damage. And it was a close fight. Don't get me wrong. I do not agree with the majority decision, but I did agree that he did outpoint me. I felt like I had done a better job than what the judges give me credit for, but it did make me have to work harder for the next fight because, you know, these boxers, these razzle-dazzle, dance around the ring kind of boxers is my style of fighting because I'm an inside kind of a fighter. And Tyrone just outpointed me in that one, which got me ready for the Johnny Bumpus fight that was coming up not too much longer.
Yeah, and then after that fight, you fight Alfredo Escalera in Madison Square Garden. Number one, what's it like to fight in Madison Square Garden? And number two, what was the difference in the second fight?
Well, I think the Madison Square Garden, having a fight Alfredo there was really a mistake on my. Really, I shouldn't have taken that fight really, because he was the favored fighter there, and it seemed to me in that fight that I was beat before the fight ever got started, and I didn't agree with the particular decision on that fight either. And Alfredo was one tough motor scooter, and he was a lot tougher in a crowd that was behind him than a crowd like at Texas when they wasn't for him. That's for sure.
Yeah, because he knew he already had a couple extra points going into the fight. It helps.
Right, exactly. Right. And one of the things about Alfredo is that in that fight, I had busted his mouth up very bad, and he had spit blood in my ear. And the referee stopped the fight, took me over to the doctor for the doctor to look at my ear to find out what was happening with my head. The doctor thought I was bleeding from my head, and I told the doctor, I said, Doc, he's spitting that in my ear. He was smart. And he was trying to get the fight stopped, you know, and you can't blame him, you know. It's dog eat dog out there, you know. Whoever can land the best lick and whoever can win is the winner. So he was trying to do everything he could.
All right, then November 12th, 1983, you get a win that I think probably led to you getting a fight with Johnny Bumpus. You beat Joe Manley, who was a really good American amateur, had a great career after that. What was that one like for you? Because that, to me, when I look at this record, that's probably the fight that gets you the title shot.
Yeah, I believe it was. Joe Manley was an excellent. Well, he's Olympic trials, 1980 Olympic trial gold medalist, and me and him fought in the Olympic trials together, and you know we knew each other real well. But I never dreamed that me and him would be fighting as a professional. And once the fight was signed, you know, I just set my head to it that I was going to go get him. And it turned out in that fight that Joe didn't have as much strength as I thought he did, and I just outweighed him. You know, I just poured more leather on him than he could stand, and he fought a great fight, but you know it just wasn't enough. You know, I had to smoke him a little bit.
All right. Then you get the shot at Johnny Bumpus. Number one, I see you fight a guy by Hector Cifuentes, April 21st.
Yeah.
And then in June 1st, you're fighting Bumpus. When did you find out that you were going to get a crack at the world title?
I think it was about 6 weeks before the fight, 5 to 6 weeks before the Bumpus fight, is when David Gorman come to me and asked me if I would be interested in a title shot. And you know what the answer was in that. And I said, yes, sir, sure would. I think I was rated number 9 in the world at that time. After beating Manley, I think they moved me to number 9. But I think that's what it was. And I remember wanting to know, did you have to be in the top 10 or top 20 or what to fight for the title? And they said, well, you're number 9, so you can fight this fight. So Bumpus took me on, and really, going into the Bumpus fight, I was confident all the way through the training session of it. It wasn't until the 3rd round, I think, when he slapped me with a hook, open hand hook, that it popped my eardrum in that fight. I didn't know my eardrum was popped. I just knew something had exploded in my head.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what happened to me until after I got back to Fort Worth and I went to the doctor, because I didn't tell nobody except my dad in the corner what had happened to me, because it made me real dizzy in about the 3rd round. And after that, it took me about 4 or 5 rounds before I got heated back up, before I could really start working Johnny again. And that was closer to the 9th round, and that's when I started putting heat on him, and I finally stopped him in the 11th.
Yeah, and the great thing about that is I remember that was in the Memorial Auditorium in Buffalo, and you guys
it was great.
You were the co-feature to Ray Mancini, Livingstone Bramble, and I remember watching that show, and it seemed obvious they brought you and Livingstone Bramble in to make Johnny Bumpus and Ray Mancini look good, and then you both end up knocking out the favorites.
I know, that was the night of the underdog.
Yeah, because I remember, I forget who the announcer was, but he comes back and he says, yes, this has become the Cat Sports Night of upsets after that second fight.
Yep.
And they were both great fights, and of course the best part is watching Lou Duva get mad.
Oh yes, Lou Duva did get a little angry that night. He sure did.
I don't think Lou Duva's ever not been angry when he's fight or lost, and I don't think he's ever not felt screwed over.
This is true. Lou was known for his temper, that's for sure. Yeah. He could throw a fit.
All right. When we look at this, everybody always talks about how you become your best after you win a world championship. Did you find that was the truth, where you get the extra confidence and everything, or did yours go a different way?
No, I honestly believe I got better, because I fought the number 1 contender my very next fight, Ubaldo Sacco, and my impression, or what I got out of Ubaldo Sacco, he had been ducked and dodged for the last 2 years in the number 1 contender position. And I went ahead and took the fight and beat Ubaldo Sacco very decisively in Fort Worth, Texas, and then had the rematch against him because of the political powers that there is, which we should have been smarter than that. Talking about my manager, we should have never went. We should have never went to the rematch in his home, Italy.
No.
But but even in Italy, I was fixing to hurt that dude, and the referee stopped the fight because I was bleeding so bad from that left eye.
Well, if I remember right, wasn't it the doctor that made him stop it?
Right, the doctor made him stop it.
But the referee was Ernesto Magana, who was known to be a little bit shady anyways. And you talk about Sacco, and the weird thing about Sacco is after he got the fight or got the win against you, he tried to defend the title once against Patricio Oliva. They made him go to Oliva's hometown. Oliva won a really controversial split decision, and then that was the last that Ubaldo Sacco ever fought. You talked about Sacco and how he got ducked, but he lost 2 decisions, he lost a decision and got a draw against Lorenzo Garcia, which I thought he'd won both. I thought
Yeah.
the first win over Sacco, to me, I think Sacco, you were in the ring with both of them, but to me, I think Sacco may have been better than Bumpus.
Hey, he was. He was definitely another Alexis Arguello. That dude could hit, and he was sharp with his punches. He could pinpoint and counterpunch you just as quick as you could ever think, and he could hurt you. I mean, he hurt me quite a few times in the fights, both fights in Fort Worth and in Italy, and he was just sharp with his hands. And I was really surprised that he got, well, I heard he got busted with drugs real bad.
Was it? Okay, well, that makes
sense.
That's
what I heard. That's what I heard. And I know that I hit that sucker with the ring post, and he still kept standing up. And I thought, how's that going to happen?
Maybe it was the drugs.
Yeah. I could hit him with everything, and he'd still stand up. I broke his jaw in Fort Worth, and he still hung in there.
Yes, he actually passed away in 1997.
Oh, he did?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Neither did I. Now, the one thing that stands out to me is you're fighting a guy from Argentina. Most of his fights were overseas or in Argentina. How hard was it to prepare for him the first time? Did you have any film on him? Did you know anything about him?
I didn't know hardly anything about Ubaldo Sacco, except that he looked like he would stand in there and fight.
Yeah.
That's what I was told, that he would fight with me.
You were told correctly, too.
Yes, yes, very much so.
All right.
Because
so
he
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go. All right, I'll go. So after you fight Sacco the second time and you lose to him, what effect did that have on you? Because I would think all of a sudden you're the champion of the world, you're on top of the world, and now all of a sudden that's been taken from you basically because I watched the fight, and that's a 15-round fight, unlike the 12-round fights of today. I think you could have pulled that fight out, so you had to feel kind of screwed out of that. And to go from being a world champion to a former world champion, what was that like on you mentally?
Well, to be honest with you, it's probably the toughest fight that I've ever had in my entire life is going from a champion to a former world champion. And whether, people can realize that or not is beside the point. But what happens is the individual, the champion, finds what loneliness really is all about. And this is where it changed my whole life after the Sacco fight. After I fought, I guess I fought from 85 to probably about 89, trying to make the comeback. No, it was about 85 to 87, trying to make a comeback, and it wasn't working. It just, I think they wouldn't match me up with the right fighters and this and that. And I got so depressed that I decided to end my life. And this is where the good Lord intervened in my life and changed everything about me from being a mad dog to turning my life around to helping people find true joy. That's what my life is about today. It hasn't changed since that time, and today I'm fighting the good fight of faith.
Yeah, and it's an awesome story. I saw a little bit of it online. I saw an interview with you with Mr. Farr, I think. And to me, I think that is the thing that makes you be a champion for the rest of your life. Not the fact that you one time knocked out Johnny Bumpus, but I think a champion is determined more by what he can overcome in his own life.
Yes, boy, man, that's the truth. That was the toughest fight that I ever met. Is trying to get the feeling of worth that you've achieved before, and then not achieving it, and then try to capture it again. And I think that happens to a lot of fighters or a lot of sports people. They get into that limelight that place of knowledge, and once it's through, then there's not a whole lot you can do with yourself except find the right things that's going to work for you. And a lot of people don't find it. They can't find it.
Well, don't you think that's because most champions, especially a world champion, you hold yourself up higher than other people or God. And when you come crashing back to life, and all of us are coming back down to earth, you all of a sudden find that maybe you're not the center of the universe.
Well, that's what is exactly what happens. That you're not the center of the universe, and dealing with it is the problem with it. And I think that I have been through that fight before, and it was a tough fight. It really was, and it's something that I think every sports figure goes through, or people that are in sports that achieve things. They go through this lull afterwards, and it's just hard to. My son's playing baseball he was playing baseball for the Padres, and he's kind of going through a lull right now because he's switching teams, and he's having that wrestling match of where is he going to find his niche. And I think that all sports people have to go through these things, and especially if you reach, to the heights of the championship of the world or a champion of some sort.
Yeah, and I think that actually probably anybody that's in a high-profile situation goes through that. And then all of a sudden, you're not that anymore. And it's hard to deal with because you put your self-worth more in what you were doing instead of what you are.
Yep, exactly. I agree.
Well,
yes,
I want to interview your son now, too, if he's a San Diego Padre. So, just so you know.
Okay. All right. Well, now, I can hook you up with him.
My question is this, because this is something that in my life I had a difficult time with it. My father passed away 5 or 6 years ago, and I had a hard time dealing with that because I grew up, my dad was my hero. And,
mine too.
Yeah, so that's why I'm going to bring this to you, because I don't really talk to anybody about my father passing away. I don't even talk to my wife about it because I just don't even want to consider it with other people. I don't like people to know what my emotions are, which is one of my problems.
Right.
But when your dad passed away in 1994, what kind of effect did it have on you spiritually?
At that time in my life, everything had changed in my life. I had changed from mad dog to glad dog. And I trusted in the one that had created me and saved me. And I had to go through a hardship of losing my daddy, who was in my corner all the time, which was a part of my backbone. And I remember that I went straight to my family and used my brother. And my trainer then was Papa Joe Berrientos still, and he stayed with me. So I had a bit of part of my family with me in the ring. I think that had a good portion of how I got through that time, because Dad was really my backbone. And once I lost him, it was very difficult. To come to that strength that I had when he was around.
All right, so what are you doing
and
now?
And anytime you lose your dad, anytime a man loses their dad, there's some sort of a loss that you have to fill up. You have to find a place for it. But anyway, what was you asking?
So what are you doing today? I saw something about Gene Hatcher Ministries. You still do that?
Yes, sir. We began this church in 1994, the very week that my dad passed away. And I'm not the pastor of the church. I'm just one of the board members, one of the laymen of the church. But I'm continually doing church work every day, no matter what, wherever I'm at. So, yes, I'm continually going forward with that.
All right.
Me and my...
Go ahead.
I said, me and my wife have been members there since 1994, and that's our church. And anytime you're in Fort Worth, I want you to come visit us, Mike.
I've never been to Texas, Gene.
Never been to Texas?
Never.
Oh, my Lord. You ain't ever been to the Lone Star State, huh?
I've never been to the Lone Star State, but I'll tell you what, I have watched a lot of old Westerns.
Have you?
Yeah, I used to love
Wayne
Bonanza
Westerns.
and Gunsmoke when I was little, so.
Yeah, that's
and it's
great.
still better than the TV that's on today.
It is, that's for sure.
It wouldn't take
Well,
much
come
to be
see
better.
us.
I would love to come see you.
Yeah.
And
That'd be nice.
yeah.
I've got a gym. I've got a gym here that I'm working out people, personal training, that I'm teaching people self-defense here. I am not teaching boxing. I'm teaching self-defense and confidence and faith to people that want to better themselves and have a better walk as they walk through this life, with the confidence that if someone did try to grab them, that they could knock the far from them, put them in their place.
Well, I think the two most important things in life are those two things you just talked about. So without the confidence and without the faith, you don't have anything anyways. And that's where people get lost. They either have no confidence in themselves, or they don't have any faith that there's something out there bigger than themselves.
That's it. That's exactly right, man. If you can grab a hold of the faith and the confidence, you can beat this world. This world's trying to hurt us, I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, and it gets worse every day. I mean, you just turn the
Every
TV
day.
on and see that. You know, it's just like what I talked about. If you turn the TV on today, you can't find any quality new shows. It's all junk. It's all stuff that is leading kids. It's like this. I mean, you can be the greatest parent in the world anymore now, but you can't be with them 24/7. And when they go out that door, it's hard telling what the hell they're around, or the people they're around. And there are so many bad influences out there, and it seems like it gets worse all the time.
Exactly. It is unreal what's going on in our society today.
Oh. You there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, because I know this. My sons were up in the park playing basketball. My sons are 16 and 18 now, like a year ago. And my son called me on the cell phone. He said, "Dad, there's all these long needles over here at the basketball court." And they were heroin needles. And we called the cops, and the cops said, "Oh, yeah, we usually come by once a week and collect them."
Collect them, pick them up.
Yeah. So it's a shame how many lost souls there are in this world now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And and a lot of them, it ain't their fault. It's because, moms and dads ain't stayed together for their kids and hung in there.
Yeah. I mean...
And that's the shame about it.
Yeah, I don't think I know of too many kids that my sons are friends with that have a mom and dad that live together anymore.
Still together, yeah.
Yeah.
Me and my wife's going on 39. We're going on 40. We're going on 40 now.
Yeah. Me and my wife are going on 25 years, and we're only behind you.
Amen.
Because you're older than me, Gene.
Amen. That's good. That's good. Well, how old are you, Mike?
I am 50.
50. That's good.
Because I remember sitting on a Saturday afternoon, I think it was the 2nd of that month, when you fought Bumpus, because they didn't show it live where I live. They showed it on something, Cat Sports, and it was syndicated and shown like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on that Saturday. And I think you guys fought on a Friday night. And I remember sitting there watching it, and that was the first time I saw Gene Hatcher. And I watched you knock out Johnny Bumpus, which I thought was great, because any fighter that worked with Lou Duva, I usually cheered against, because the guy was really obnoxious. And then I remember after being excited about that, Ray Boom Boom Mancini got knocked out, and then I was sad again.
I know. Yeah, it made me sad, too, to see Ray go down.
Yeah. Ray's a good guy.
Yeah. Oh, he is. He's a great guy.
My problem is I can get him to answer the phone and talk to me. I just can't get him to set up a time to get him on the show.
Oh, really? Isn't that something?
I keep chasing
cool.
him. But, hey, Gene, it was great for you to take time out on New Year's Eve to talk to us. I really appreciate it, sir.
Yes, sir, Mike. Anytime you get in Texas, come by Fort Worth and holler at me, man. I'll take you out to eat.
All right, I most definitely will, Gene. All right, guys. And Gene, stay on the line here when we're done. I want to talk to you for a second. But I want to remind everybody, you can catch me and former 1981 national champion Steve Risley on Survive and Advance tomorrow at noon. Our special guest is Lucas Week from Rogers Sportsnet in Canada to talk about the top 10 sports moments of the year. Also, make sure you check out the Survive Advances. We've done it the last week where we've had guys like former Notre Dame football player Tony Hunter, Oliver Luck, the commissioner of the XFL. Check out our legend shows where you can check out our interviews with Dan Pastorini, somebody Gene Hatcher probably remembers since he's in Texas, Robert Brazil. Check all those guys out. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Gene Hatcher, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.